Before we get into the video, I need you guys to do me a favour. Number 1, get this video to at least 200 likes. Also comment, let me know your thoughts on the case. In society there are dealers, but then there are some people who you can only class as scumbags. 2 men have been sentenced to over 36 years between them after they recruited teenagers to take to the streets and distribute Class A gear on their behalf. Some of these teenagers were as young as 14 and also a 15-year-old girl. 35-year-old Leon Johnson and 36-year-old Kewsi Asiedu from Jenner Road in Hackney, East London, were running a profitable organisation, and at the heart of the organisation were vulnerable teenagers, again that included a 15-year-old girl whom had been reported missing. They were taken from areas in London and also places like Bedford, and then put into other cities, such as Northampton. Once far away from the home, these teenagers were selling Class A gear like H and crack. Kewsi Asiedu was the individual responsible for facilitating the travel of these teenagers, aged 14 years old, 15 years old, and also a 17-year-old. Now, as for Leon Johnson, as well as dealing charges himself, he was responsible for arranging the travel of a 15-year-old and also a 17-year-old. Now, the 2 men had begun to build their empire in March of 2021 when they first recruited a teenage girl from Bedford to sell on their behalf. The teenager ended up getting caught with £5,000 worth of gear. When police swiped for DNA on the packages, Leon Johnson's fingerprints were found on the wraps. 2 weeks later, a 17-year-old teenager was also caught, this time in Northampton, with at least £10,000 worth of gear. Police found out that the 17-year-old teenager, who was originally from Hackney, had been reported missing by concerned parents. And then, a month later, a 14-year-old teenager, also from Hackney, was caught dealing, and again, the packages were swiped for DNA, and they also found Johnson's fingerprints on them. He had also been reported missing by concerned parents too. Now, the court heard that Kewsi had made the trip between London and Northampton multiple times with a 14-year-old teenager, days before he was detained. Now, both men, when arrested, they pled guilty. Kewsi was sentenced to 9 years for the traffic of teenagers and also dealing offences. Leon Johnson was sentenced to 18 years for the same offences. Now, does crime pay? Let me know in the comments. Stay safe.